So, good morning and a very warm welcome to you, Fatih BIROL. Let me thank you and the International Energy Agency for the excellent cooperation we have developed over the years. In recent and mostly in difficult times, we have always been able to rely on each other. And I'm very much looking forward to working with you another 5 years now. In 1 month, we will mark 1,000 days since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. 1,000 days of absolute cruelty from the Kremlin. Since the beginning, they have been targeting Ukraine's energy infrastructure to try and plunge the country in the dark. Half of all the country's energy infrastructure has been destroyed. This is approximately the equivalent of the capacity of the 3 Baltic states together. So it gives you an idea of the brutality of these attacks. And just 2 weeks ago, on August 26th, more than 230 missiles were launched during a 12-hour attack. They were directed at power stations, substations, and other key infrastructure, and millions of Ukrainians were left without electricity for several hours. As Ukraine's friends and partners, we must do all we can to keep the lights on. And as winter is approaching, we must keep the brave people of Ukraine warm, while we also are keeping the economy running. The objective is to address the immediate needs of the population while we make Ukraine's energy system more resilient in the long term. Now, overall, Ukraine needs 17 gigawatt of power capacity for this winter. Today, I want to propose action in 3 areas. It's repair, it's connect, and it is stabilize. So let's first have a look at the element repair. 80% of Ukraine's thermal plants have been destroyed and a third of the hydropower capacity. So this is where we will concentrate our repair efforts with the aim to restoring 2.5 gigawatt of capacity this winter. That is approximately 15% of Ukraine's needs. And we will continue coordinating all possible support from our member states through the civil protection mechanism. So far, we have managed to send more than 10,000 power generators and transformers, and more help is coming. As we speak, for example, there's a full thermal power plant that is being dismantled in Lithuania and shipped piece by piece to Ukraine with our support and rebuilt then in Ukraine. And this shows the great length of European Union and the member states' willingness to support Ukraine. The second element to help cover Ukraine's needs for the winter is the export of electricity. We call it Connect. You might recall the synchronization of Ukraine's grid with ours that we had started in February 2022, just as Russia's war broke out. Back then, we had planned to do this connection of Ukraine's grid with the European grid over the next 2 years. But when Russia attacked, we did all we could to speed up this process. And instead of 2 years, Ukraine's grid was connected to the European one in 2 weeks. This allows us now to export the much-needed power to Ukraine. We export 2 gigawatt of electricity to Ukraine, which also covers roughly 12% of the country's need for the winter. It compensates, for example, the equivalent of the loss of power generation from the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, as you know, that is now under illegal Russian control. So if you take all in all, with our 2 pillars, repair and connect, we cover over 25% of Ukraine's needs for the winter. The big bulk, of course, has to be produced in Ukraine. And my third point is on our work to stabilize the flow of energy in the country. We're boosting decentralized production of energy. This includes rolling out more renewables in the country. As you know, solar plants on rooftops are harder to hit and easier to repair than large central infrastructure. And while it helps secure a steadier flow of energy in the country, it also pushes forward Ukraine's energy independence and the clean transition. We are, for example, dispatching solar panels to 21 hospitals in the country to ensure continued energy supply. 8 of them should be fully equipped by this winter. We are also sharing expertise and working together with Ukraine on cyber awareness and cybersecurity to make their energy system more resilient. These 3 objectives, repair, connect, stabilize, require significant financial support. Overall, we estimate that our support to Ukraine's energy sector since February 2022 amounts to at least 2 billion euros. And that is a low estimate because it does not take into account all in-kind donations. And today I can announce that we will make an additional amount of close to 160 million euros available for this winter. This includes 60 million euros in humanitarian aid for shelters and heaters, for example. And it includes around 100 million euros for repair works and renewables. And these 100 million euros come from the proceeds of the immobilized Russian assets in the European Union. Because it is only right that Russia pays for the destruction it caused. We know that more is needed, so we must keep transferring part of the proceeds from immobilized Russian assets to Ukraine's energy resilience. In 2 weeks' time, the heating season starts. As temperatures are dropping down, the European Union is ready to step up its support to Ukraine. We are preparing for the winter together. After this press conference, I will be traveling to Kyiv to discuss these matters in person with President Zelensky tomorrow. In our efforts to help Ukraine, I'm very glad that I can count on the continued support of the International Energy Agency. And dear Fatih, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, dear colleagues, very good morning to all of you. First of all, Madam President, it is the first time that we meet face-to-face after your re-election. May I congratulate you one more time wholeheartedly. What a wonderful news for Europe and for the friends of Europe. So congratulations again, Madam President. Dear colleagues, many of you may know that the IEA's core mandate is energy security. And one of the hallmarks of the IEA in the recent times has been our nimbleness to address emerging crisis situations. One of them, again, related to this issue, only 1 week after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, we came out with a plan, the 10-point plan for Europe, what Europe could do in order to minimize, if not nullify, the Russian gas without Europeans freezing, without economy is being destroyed. And Europe, under the leadership of Madam President, was able to go through these difficult times in the last 2 years, despite Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the energy crisis there. And I heard from many government leaders that our 10-point plan played an important role to support their decisions, which makes us very happy. We also look at other urgent issues in the energy world, such as the as we just discussed, Madam President, for the access to energy in Africa, to the climate change issues where energy plays an important role. But today, the reason I am here is to bring everybody's attention to the very fragile energy situation in Ukraine today, and even more this coming winter. last June, we have decided to make a report on the energy sector of Ukraine for the coming winter, and it was already very fragile, but 26th of August, only a few weeks ago, there was a major attack from Russia, damaging big chunk of the energy infrastructure in Ukraine. So this situation is very delicate now, especially winter is coming. And even before this attack, because of the previous attacks on the Ukrainian energy infrastructure, two-thirds of the power generation capacity of Ukraine was lost. And we are coming to winter. As you know, when the temperatures drop, energy demand increases, and this could be a major issue for electricity and for heating in Ukraine, for not only for the homes, but for the hospitals, for schools, for the communication networks. We may see huge implications, and this may lead to some consequences beyond the energy sector, because people will look to move around, to go to the places where they can have shelter and heating. And this may also go beyond the social and the energy issues to some political consequences. So therefore, this is extremely important. It is the reason we came up, Madam President, with a 10-point plan again. And I will just highlight some of them. And thank you very much. You mentioned some of them, that Europe is taking some steps in the right direction once again. What are our 10 key energy sector points? Just give you a couple of them. First of all, and perhaps the most important, expedite the deliveries of spare parts and the equipments of electricity generation assets. This is the transformators, the grids, and the others, and at the same time, physical protection of the existing electricity assets in the country. Second, to increase the decentralized electricity system, because Ukraine, like in many countries in the region, the electricity sector is big, large assets there, which is easier to damage and attack. So therefore, moving more and more diesel generators, the small scale of gas-fired power plants, solar panels, wind turbines will help a lot to decentralize this with a focus on hospitals, schools, and other important areas. Especially for water supply, it is critical to bring this type of power supply. Third, increase in electricity supply from Europe to Ukraine. So there is already some electricity supply from Europe to Ukraine, and without compromising the European electricity security, maybe current steps are a bit on the conservative side. We may be a bit more generous, there will be more flexibility to provide more electricity to our colleagues in Ukraine, to export more electricity to Ukraine. Then for the Ukrainian colleagues, we are discussing with them to put a social tariff to save energy there, to up to a certain level of energy consumption subsidized, but when you go beyond that, the increasing prices may lead to save energy there. And not only electricity, but the heating systems will be very important in Ukraine in winter. And as a result of the attacks, the heating plants have been severely damaged. Therefore, small heaters running on LPG would be of critical importance. One final thing I want to mention in these steps, please let's do not forget Moldova. Moldova is also going to be affected from these developments, and Europe's support for Moldova's gas supply, energy supply, will be of crucial importance. So to finish, Madam President, thank you very much for going to Kiev and looking at these issues. In my view, this is one of the most pressing energy security issues of the world today. And in the last 2 winters, thanks to the very hard work of our colleagues in Ukraine and the Ukraine's international partners such as Europe, Ukrainians went through the winter, but this coming winter will be extremely fragile for Ukrainian energy system, and we cannot afford to fail from energy angle, from economic angle, from social angle, and beyond. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We will now move to a few questions. Before we do so, 2 points. We're taking questions on energy in Ukraine today, and we will have a technical briefing right after this press conference for all your detailed technical questions. John.
Thank you for the briefing. First question, Dr. BIROL, you say in the report that gas flows through Ukraine is your an end to gas flows coming through Ukraine is your base case. I'm just wondering if you can explain a little bit more what underpins that assumption, given we know that negotiations with EU companies are taking place. And to President von der Leyen, what's your message to companies that might be considering signing up to new agreements to keep gas flowing through this route, given the concern expressed by member states that Russian molecules could easily be mixed in? Thank you.
So we expected there will not be change to the current regime. The companies that have already made agreements for the gas flows will fulfill their commitments. This is our base case assumption.
Yes, and here it is a Ukrainian decision how to deal with the pipeline. So it's also their responsibility and their right to deal in a proper and responsible way with that.
Leyen.
Thanks for the floor. Maria Psara with Euronews TV. I have two questions. The first one is, you said that with all this till now, you cover the energy in Ukraine with over 25%, right? With this new reimbursement and with the spare parts coming from other countries, which is the new goal you put for the end of this winter? And the second question on the energy in the EU. The Greek Prime Minister sent a letter a few days ago about high energy prices in countries of the south and east, partly because of Russia's war against Ukraine. So do you share this view, first of all? What can the Commission do to ensure better electricity prices in these countries of the EU? And is it among your priorities for the first 100 days, since Draghi's report also mentioned that structural changes are needed for the energy market? Thank you.
So indeed, concerning the Prime Minister's letter, the Greek Prime Minister's letter to us, there are, as he also mentioned, multiple factors that are impacting the energy prices. For example, indeed, the pressure of climate change on our energy systems and the question of being better interconnected within the European Union and with our neighbors. The Russian attacks on Ukraine do play a role, but more a minor one. So it's a multitude of factors that play into the topic of energy prices. Overall, we know that we have in Europe, compared to the rest of the world, structurally too high energy prices. And one very clear goal of the new Commission, but also described in the Draghi report, is to lower structurally the energy prices. And this is a mixture of measures you can take. So first of all, the diversification, where we have been very successful away from Russian fossil fuels to other friends, massive investment in renewable energy, low carbon energy, and the energy savings, so energy efficiency plays a big role in that. Of course, the question also, how will the market be equipped with offer of energy? Because every energy, and it's mostly the fossil fuels that we import, we are very dependent on the global market. The more we have domestic energy, renewable energy, the more independent we are, and the lower the prices are, without any question. The goal for this winter, you were asking the first part of your question. So 25% is an add-on that we can supply to Ukraine. Of course, it's going to be tough to deliver on the 75% that have to be produced within Ukraine. We support as much as we can. It's a huge challenge. But I'm kind of reminded to the situation we had 2 winters ago, when we were cut off all of a sudden of Russian fossil fuels. The predictions were tough, but we stood together. We mobilized whatever we could as measures. The 10-point plan was very helpful there, really to unite the European Union. And in a result, we made it through the winter without blackouts. So we were successful also in decoupling from Russian fossil fuels. But certainly your part of the question, what Ukraine can do, will intensify that.
So, first, Madam President, electricity prices, as our colleague mentioned, in that part of Europe is high, but not only because of the, as Prime Minister Mitsotakis mentions rightly, because of the situation in Ukraine, but the gas prices, the gas prices were also high. And when the gas prices are, they also push the electricity prices. We had a heat wave in Europe. It also pushed the prices up, and also low hydro production was also another reason why we have seen higher electricity prices in that part of Europe. And what Ukraine can do, among other things, to save energy at home. And this is the reason that we suggest to the Ukrainian government to subsidize only the minimum energy needs of use of the households and the industry. When the use goes above a certain level, consumption level, they should use the increased tariff so that it can give an incentive to save energy. This can be a key solution.
Okay, David.
Thank you very much, David Carretta, Radio Radicale. The first question is on the push for renewable. I've been in Kiev almost 1 year ago, and one expert of the Ukrainian authorities told me that they need a gas turbine to decentralize the system and avoid the attacks on centralized power generation. I'm wondering if this program will be just on renewable, or gas turbine will play a role, since Ukraine has gas and produce gas. The second question is on the financing. You said that part of it will be financed with the revenues from frozen asset. Is it settled, so there is an agreement among member states, or do you fear that some member states, one in particular, could have some reservation? Thank you very much.
So what the first part of the question is concerned, we have, for example, delivered gas turbines. Of course, we have to deal with what is possible at the moment being in Ukraine, but also the massive increase of delivering of solar panels shows that it is decentralizing the energy supply and at the same time going into renewable energy that is independent, for example, from the gas. So you will have both elements, certainly. And I think in the technical briefing afterwards, the detailed elements will be shown to you. We have taken the necessary legal steps to use the immobilized Russian assets. As you know, this was not trivial, but this is accomplished now. And now parts of it will certainly go into the defense element, but parts of it will also go to other elements, like, for example, the energy supply, which shows the 100 million, around 100 million that we are providing right now.
Okay, thank you very much. This brings us to the end of our press conference. We will move on now to the technical briefing.